Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Foundation Fighting Blindness's Proposers Day for the Translational Research Acceleration Program. My name is Chad Jackson. I'm the Senior Director of the Preclinical Translational Research Program at the Foundation Fighting Blindness, and I'll be conducting this webinar today. You may see other people on the panel, but that's just my other colleagues from the foundation, but you'll mostly be interacting with me today. We'll just give it another minute or so while everyone joins the webinar and so no one misses out on the information. It is my pleasure to let everyone know that we actually been doing these webinars. This will be the fifth one. So we've been doing them for 5 years now. And over that time, I'm proud to report that the foundation has funded just under 30 programs focused on either inherited retinal disease or dry age-related macular degeneration. So we're at a point now where we have a whole portfolio of research programs funded by donations that are working hard toward finding cures and treatments to blinding disorders. I see that we have about 40 participants now in the room, so we'll just go ahead and get started. So just give me 1 second to share my screen. All right, I hope you all are seeing sort of the full screen program for the Proposers Day. If not, Leila, could you please chime in and let me know if we're having any sort of technical issues or anything?
We're seeing your screen and the next slide.
Okay, so let me
You're in presenter's view.
And share the other one then. Thank you for that, Leila.
No problem.
How about now? Are we all good?
Yes.
Good to go. Great. I'd also like to say, as I said, my welcome by all the accomplishments that we've had over the last 4 or 5 years. Also that we have a long way to go as well. So we're looking to fund probably over the next 4 or 5 years, at least another 30 or so programs. And that's what we're here to do, is to talk about the Translational Research Acceleration Program a bit more. I do want to highlight, though, that with the upcoming ARVO meeting, if anybody here on the call would like to speak to me directly at ARVO, please do so. But please reach out to me directly. My email is cjackson@fightingblindness.org. I'll have the information available at the end of the talk as well, so you don't have to sort of scribble it down now. But please meet me at ARVO if you'd like to talk more about this funding opportunity. So for the agenda today, again, we've already done the welcome, and then we'll just give a brief overview of the program. Also, I'll share some grant writing tips for everyone so you can understand where we're positioned and how we would like to interact with you through the written form. And also, we'll take some questions from the audience. Please, if you do submit a question, there's a Q&A tab in Zoom. Please enter your question there, and we'll try to get to it in order. Then we'll have a closeout. So there should be, we've scheduled about an hour for this meeting. I don't know if it will actually take an hour, but we have that time allotted. So please ask away any questions that you might have. Oh, I see a typo here already. I thought I had mentioned I had updated everything, but we'll actually be closing the meeting out at 2 p.m., not 12 p.m. So please excuse that typo. As many of you may be aware of, this particular funding program is focused on inherited retinal degenerations as well as dry age-related macular degeneration. These are the primary disease indications that align with the mission of the Foundation Fighting Blindness, and this is what our funding is going towards. This schematic here is just a general representation of the program at large and what we fund. So we start over here at the left. We are looking at the research priority areas for the program. We start with novel medical therapies. Those cover things like small molecules and biologics, genetic technologies such as AAV-based and non-viral-based genetic tools, such as either genetic therapy or gene editing, and then also regenerative medicine. That's about the use of stem cells or other means to repopulate disease or lost cells within the retina. We'll go into details a little bit more in the next few slides of the research priority areas. But for now, we'll just these are just here to highlight what we're interested in. And the uniqueness of the program is actually what we do is we take a proactive management approach to our funded programs. What does this actually mean? Well, once you are funded, the very first thing you do is you get access to a translational science mentor or just project mentor who has usually decades of experience in industry. And the reason being that most of the people that we fund are in academia. And therefore, we're trying to shift the thinking from doing research for the generation of new knowledge. While that's important, we also want to develop a product that can hopefully reach the clinic one day to actually help people. So the project mentor is there to give you tips and tools to try to focus the research and actually moving along the development pipeline towards clinical utility. Um, Also, with that, we require that our awardees meet with us monthly. And these monthly meetings are really just to provide orthogonal services around the award to help the awardee with any problems that they may have. So it may seem burdensome, but we actually structure it in a way that we actually eliminate a lot of the burden. It's more so about having a team around the project to help the project move as smoothly as possible. Once it comes out of this accelerator, what are we expecting? Well, I think at the very least, what we're expecting is these research efforts to garner the attention of another funding entity. That could be an award from a government funding agency. It could be interested from the venture capital world of things or some type of partnership, all in efforts to push the technology toward number one, an investigational new drug filing or IND filing with the FDA, hopefully the establishment of a clinical trial, and then years from now, a commercial product. We really want to see these technologies move as fast and as far as possible with our funding toward the clinic. And really the program mission, stated here below in general, is just saying that because of the uniqueness and the variability of inherited retinal disease as well as AMD, we need a multitude of approaches to actually combat these disease indications. And that's what our funding is focused on. So novel medical therapies. So there's a lot of words here, and also these slides will be available. Either this webinar will be available on the foundation's website, and as well, if you reach out to me, I can provide these slides to anyone through PDF format. Here, we're going to go over our three research priority areas, one being novel medical therapies. And again, I'll just highlight that these are really things that fall in the small molecule biologics, optotherapy, such as optogenetics, and alternative therapies. So the two you may have more questions about, maybe the optotherapies and alternative therapies, but just suffice to say that if you're using some sort of approach that then turns light into some type of biological process to help restore vision, that's what we're talking about, optotherapies, and those would need to be submitted to the novel medical therapy group. Alternative therapies are something that fall outside of any of the research priority areas, maybe some type of a really novel approach. We would also like you to submit them there. Next, oops, I think I skipped over. There we go. Genetic technologies. And really, when we talk about genetic technology, this is the manipulation or modification of retinal gene expression that alters biological properties to help restore or maintain vision in retinal degenerations as well as AMD. What we're really looking for is sort of any genetic component, whether that be DNA, RNA, that results in a protein, and then also adequate delivery of that substance or tool actually to the target site of disease, whether that be photoreceptors, RPE, or any other retinal cell type of importance. So we fund sort of anything around that realm when it comes to genetically manipulating the retina for the restoration of vision. And next, our research part is regenerative medicine. And that can be simplified in just saying that in a diseased retina where cells have been lost due to disease, how can we restore cells? So any multitude of how you would take that approach, whether it be the use of stem cells, coaxing cells that are already in the retina to then transform into the diseased retinal cell type of interest, the replenishment of cells into the retina by means of what we call here like a cellular delivery system, such as a combinatorial therapy. Anything sort of falls under that umbrella to regenerate the diseased retina that has lost function is what we're interested in seeing here. And I just want to foot stomp this area that we are really interested in getting more applications in this area. So even if you're on this call and you may be working more so in the small molecule area or the genetic technologies area, if you have a colleague that you think would be great for this funding mechanism, please send them our way, because we really want to expand our footprint in regenerative medicine for the restoration of vision. Next, we have our funding mechanism. So this is a bit different than in years past. Um, we used to have different categories of funding. So we have eliminated those categories, and we'll go into that a little bit more in depth in the next few slides. But for here, let's just give an overview of our funding mechanisms right now. So this translational award, we're going to fund projects up to $1 million, and that $1 million would be dispersed over 3 years for projects. And really, this goes from anything that's really early preclinical all the way up and through IND enabling studies. We are not really a position funding wise to start funding clinical trials with this particular funding mechanisms, but we will help technologies that fall within that pipeline, within that timeline, to get as far as possible actually to the start of those clinical trials. It mentioned here, indeed, it says research should be hypothesis driven, but there's a caveat to that, in that if you are looking to do one or more sort of critical experiments to help that technology transfer maybe to a regulatory filing or for an investment opportunity, and it has to do with just further evaluating your therapy, it may not be hypothesis driven at that time. So we also will consider research efforts to fall outside of that, but they just have to be at the more advanced stage. We have to make sure also that what you're working on is of clinical relevance. We're not going to do science just for science sake. We really want to make sure that whatever's being developed has a clinical utility potential to it. Now, there's two more here things where there's a FFB cost share partnership and FFB advisory partnership. These are these are less used than our regular just funding mechanism, and I don't want to take time today going in depth on those, but if you think that maybe you have adequate funding already, however, you find value in partnering with the foundation, and maybe need some more advisory oversight, or somehow a partnership may help you advance your technology, please reach out to me and let me know. But I would say that our bread and butter is actually providing grant mechanisms or grant funding to fantastic research opportunities to help them advance. So in recent years, for the last 4 years of our previous strategic plan, we had 3 categories: category 1, 2, and 3 when it comes to this particular funding mechanism. We've actually done away with that. So I think people at times found it maybe a little confusing or something about what did the actual categories mean. So what we're talking about now is really this is the scope of our funding right here, what I'm trying to show on this slide. So really the start of this would be the discovery and target identification. Around that particular stage of research and development is where we, I think, would like to start funding that. And that goes all the way up to what I call here phase 1 clinical trials. So again, we're not funding the phase 1 clinical trials, so we would stop probably right before what we talk about regulatory engagement or hit to lead, regulatory engagement and IND enabling studies. So, and let's, I guess, just take a little time to walk through what do we mean by target discovery and target identification. This is actually when researchers identify a potential therapeutic target related to a disease. And this involves maybe even literature reviews, genomics, proteomics, or bioinformatic analysis to actually give us a little inkling on whether or not something would be a potential target for treating a disease. The next here, target validation. This would be how we confirm that the target is relevant to the disease. And we may use cellular models or small animal studies, or even small animal studies to demonstrate its role in the disease progression. Next, we would have lead compound identification. This could be something, when you talk about like small molecules, this could be a high throughput screening of a chemical library or natural products to identify molecules that actually interact with the target to either antagonize it or what have you. Next, the hit to lead is an iterative process to improve the lead compound's properties. And that means maybe we could make little adjustments to improve the efficacy, the safety, or pharmacokinetics. But then also, this is where medicinal chemistry modifications may come into play and enhance the binding affinity or selectivity of it. So you can imagine if you have a compound and actually targets two different receptors, that you can make little changes there to make sure that it's only targeting one receptor. Next would be the preclinical studies, and we're really talking about the studies conducted in animals, whether it be usually rodents. And again, we're kind of moving up the scale here as we're marching along this pipeline. These studies will help you access the safety data, pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, and efficacy, and then also toxicology studies to see what type of adverse effects may be with your therapeutic approach. And then lastly, we would get into what is known as IND, or investigational new drug enabling therapies. Enabling studies. And these are really studies in mostly large animals or some type of relevant human like testing system in which you can prove out even further the efficacy and safety of your potential therapeutic. And that is the really important data that goes into your regulatory engagement packages when you're meeting with agencies such as the FDA, trying to get their input and approval to move on with phase 1 clinical trials. So I hope I've given you a brief overview. Now that the overview I've given you is a overly simplistic view of our of that sort of development pipeline, but I hope it gives you a little inkling on the sort of the scope of which we're interested in funding through this particular funding mechanism. The eligibility, on this slide, we're going to go through eligibility criteria for our translational funding. And again, I've hit on it a number of times about you must address one of the research priority areas that I've highlighted in previous slides, but we sort of offer you a maximal flexibility in that if you don't adequately fit in one of those therapies, again, your therapy then, or your approach, would go to the novel medical therapy section of that. So don't worry about not squarely fitting in one of those boxes. Please go ahead and submit your idea, but submit that sort of that outlier idea to our novel medical therapy section. One thing you have to do is clearly identify how you believe your approach will address inherited retinal disease and or AMD. I think that is one of the key things of being able to pinpoint why your rationale for why you think this approach will work. Also in that, some of the criteria is you must be using an approach that is favorable to the FDA. I think the key word of our program is acceleration. So we want to make sure that the approaches that we're taking are accelerating the therapy towards clinical utility. We love research, we love new knowledge, but we also have to focus on development, and that is going towards clinical development. So if you are an awardee of this program, that's something that we will harp on a lot, is how does this study, or how does this assay, how does this approach inform clinical utility? Here in the second part of the eligibility criteria, we kind of outline the institutions and individuals who actually can apply for this. So in general, a person has to be in a leadership position at their organization, someone who has signatory approval and can conduct research with the full support of their organization. We are, for example, you would have to have the organization dedicate space to you. So if you have to be in a leadership position, meaning that if you are actually a postdoctoral fellow, unfortunately, this particular funding mechanism is not for you because you are not in that research leadership position yet. But if you are a principal investigator, if you're the director of an institute, if you are the chief scientific officer of a research-based nonprofit, please apply. You are more than eligible. Also, for each project, there will be one PI for each project. We don't have the co-PI situation. And that's because the person responsible for the award will have the responsibility of project oversight, financial management, and reporting to the foundation. The research funds that are given, you're more than happy to have subcontractors or sub-awardees on the project who may fill some or all of the research. You'll just have to identify that in the research proposal. And then also you want to demonstrate to us that you have the partnerships, the tools, the equipment, the space, and actually to conduct the research that you say you can conduct. So that pretty much covers the research or the eligibility criteria for this award. So I do want to mention this though for applicants is that some years ago, the Foundation Fighting Blindness started a subsidiary organization known as the Retinal Degeneration Fund. And this organization actually can make equity investments into companies who are working on disease indications related to inherited retinal disease as well as AMD. Therefore, if you are a company that's applying to the TRAP program, there will be a level of company due diligence that we will have to conduct in lockstep with the Retinal Degeneration Fund. And here we're giving some examples here of what information we would like covered during that due diligence process. So it's basically the capitalization of a company, revenue, profit, and margin trends, competitors in the industry, and who are the management and who owns the company actually. So, and there's probably a whole host of other things that we would cover, but this just gives you a little idea for what types of information we'd be looking for companies in addition to a research proposal. Probably at the stage of getting invited for a full proposal, we would also require of companies for them to submit a pitch deck to the Retinal Degeneration Fund for review. If there's any additional questions about that from individuals at companies looking to seek our translational funding, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Next, selection process. So our selection process is a bit lengthy, but we want to make sure that we hear all ideas and that they all get a proper review. We'll go through this step by step so everyone can understand exactly what I mean by each one of these time points. First, we published the research for requests for applications back on April 10th of this year. Of course, today we're holding the proposers webinar. And in June or on June 4th, we are expecting, that's the deadline for people to submit the letter of intent to apply on that date. Once the letters of intent are in, they will be reviewed. And then we will send the people who are moving on to the full application stage notification of that by August 8th. And then the full applications will be due on October 17th, and then the foundation will start its full review. It is our hope that we can conduct the reviews between October and December of this year, and then we have an anticipated award date of March 2025. You might be wondering, well, why does it take reviews ending in December and then not awarding until March? Well, there's another layer of due diligence that have to be done, meaning that we have to inform our different boards of the research opportunities that we're recommending for funding, and we have to go through their approval process as well, and that just takes a bit of time. So I know that lots of you are looking at this funding and really would want it much sooner than that, but this is our current process of approval. And after that, after we notice awards and we actually get award terms signed, we will have a kickoff meeting and the research will start. So that goes over the basic selection process and timeline for this program. In addition, once you're awarded a translational award, not only do you get access to a project mentor, there's also oversight from what we term the Innovation Advisory Council. This is a group of professionals that span academia, industry, clinicians, engineers, IP experts, regulatory experts, that will get a high-level view of, high-level and in-depth views of the program as well as each individual project, and will all lend their expertise on how these projects and programs should be reshaped or reformatted, actually to help them accelerate faster towards the clinic. So it's actually should be a positive experience. These are the individuals that are currently on the advisory council. So many of you may already know them. So please, if you want to reach out to them to ask them about their experience of working with the foundation and also working on this translational program, please do so. I think they can provide a lot of insight as well. So overall, with all that said, what are the ultimate goals of this program? So our ultimate goal, if we had, a magic wand and we could say all of our programs will do this, it would be that each program at the end would file an IND application with the FDA to start a clinical trial. Now, we understand that this is really a long shot for some programs because they're so early on in development, but that's what we're striving towards. And at least at the end of it, that a project would have follow-on funding from some entity so that these ideas don't die because of funding, but they actually continue on and hopefully reach the clinic. Next, right after that, of course, is establishable clinical trial. We really want to see these therapies and these ideas working in clinics to help people. And then ultimately a commercial product that's out there available for the wider community at large. Again, you reiterate the key dates, and I think the number one key date we have to keep in mind is the letter of intent. You're not allowed to move on to the full application stage without that. So that deadline for that letter of intent is June 4th. If you need more information about that, please visit the Foundation's website and navigate towards the Translational Research Acceleration Programs page. And it has all the information there that you need to apply. So please do not hesitate to go there either now or right after this call. Also, if you have any troubles reaching that page, please let me know by email or phone call even, and I'll be happy to supply you with that information. So here, just quickly, for most of you on the call, this may seem a little overkill to go over grant writing tips, because I would imagine that the majority of people here have already written grants before and been very successful. But I just want to reiterate that a well-written proposal goes a long way into getting funding from the Foundation Fighting Blindness. The clearer, the more polished a proposal is, those usually score the best. So I would hate for anyone to apply, rush their application, or don't take the time to polish it. And because the writing is either confusing or incomplete, that is the thing that affects the scoring of your application. We really have to get these reviewers to fully understand your ideas and your approaches as clearly as concisely as possible. So these bullet points that I provided will help I think, reinforce that sentiment. So again, you really have to start out with a clear and concise project plan. From the very first sentence, make it obviously clear about what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it. I think that in itself helps set the tone for the rest of the proposal. Make sure that your application aligns with the FFB goals and missions. For example, you may have a neuroprotectant and you want to test it in a glaucoma model. Well, while glaucoma is an important disease indication that needs mitigation, it is outside of the purview of the Foundation Fighting Blindness. So again, we are focused on inherited retinal disease and dry age-related macular degeneration. I would also seek feedback from your mentors and colleagues. Have someone read over your application before you send it in. Have them challenge you on your ideas and your research plan. It would only go to making a stronger application at the end of the day. Please highlight your team's expertise and qualifications. For example, if you're going to suggest to do some work in retinal organoids, but you've never made a retinal organoid, you might want to seek the advice or maybe expand your research team a little bit to include someone who has that ability. So things that are very technically challenging, don't just offer them as, oh yes, I'm going to do that. Actually, either gain the expertise yourself or have someone join the research team that does have that expertise. Also address potential challenges. We want you also to understand that we understand there's going to be risk to what you're doing. If we're really trying to push the envelope on creating new, out-of-the-box novel therapies for these disease indications, we understand there's some risk that comes along with it. Please make that be known and maybe even propose a strategy on how to mitigate that risk. Some more writing tips is emphasize the significance of your research. Therefore, if you are successful, what does that mean? And also, what is the logical next step after that? So if you're saying that if I find that this small molecule targets this receptor, what does that mean in the clinic potentially? But then also let us know, what does that mean very next? What are the next steps for you to do? What are the next animals to test? So highlight that as well in your letter of intent, and we'll probably also have that highlighted in your full application. Again, I guess I put this in twice, but this is how important it is. Use clear and concise language. The more you can avoid jargon and technical terms, it just makes it that much more jump off the page for the reviewer. Make sure that the figures and the figure legends are clear and easy to understand, and also labeled correctly. Um, Again, most of you have probably already know this, but I'm here just to foot stomp these facts. And then proofread, I think it's even spelled wrong there on purpose. Proofread and edit your proposal carefully. Foundation reviewers are looking for well-written and well-organized proposals. So again, that's getting input from your colleagues, and even taking the time yourself to do a little bit of polishing. So with that, and I think we've been going on for about a half hour straight now, I'll take any questions. And again, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section. Please. All right, I'm still waiting on any potential questions or anything. I do see, once I opened up the chat, that Leala Kenny has provided my email address there. So if any of you are interested in sending me a note or a request for a meeting at Arvo, please just email me at that email address. All right, I see we have one open question. I'll just read the question to the group, and it's, does FFB claim any rights to the technology it funds? FFB does not claim any rights to the technology that it funds. We do encourage, though, if the technology is not protected, meaning there's a patent on it, that you quickly talk with your technology transfer officials, whatever organization you're at, and get that technology protected as soon as possible. However, I will mention that in our funding agreements, the FFB does seek a level of revenue share from the projects that we fund. If you would like more information on that, please reach out to me at my email address and I can provide more. We'll wait here a few more minutes. Here, we have another question. It says, can we resubmit the rejected TRAP award with addressing reviewer comments? 100%. If you are a former TRAP awardee and you did not get selected in a previous funding round, however, you have now updated your application and addressed the reviewer's comments, whether that be through your writing or through additional data, please, please, please reapply. A number of our current TRAP awardees did not get awarded on the first go around. So please come back with the revisions and please apply again. I will also mention, if you are a former or even current TRAP awardee and you have a different idea, or you are ready for the next stage of funding, meaning that you show that you have advanced your technology and you're in like the last years of your funding, you can also apply for a TRAP award again. There's not a limitation on it, as long as it makes sense development wise. We're not going to fund an iterative process per se, but if you're moving from doing small animal work and going into large animal work, we will fund that program to develop to the next stage. Well, we have another question. It says, so can I still submit an LOI and start the process again from scratch? Unfortunately, yes. So each application round is sort of contained within itself. So if you were, for example, invited to the full application stage for our fiscal year 2024 round, but we're not selected the full application stage, yes, you would have to resubmit a letter of intent, as well as wait for that selection process, then move on to the full application. We don't, at this particular time, have an accelerated process for individuals who made it to the full application stage and then want to reapply. However, I will share a tidbit with you that in your letter of intent, I would find a way to uh, simply address or highlight that, I've applied last year or over the last 2 years. These were the main sort of issues that the FFB, the foundation reviewers had with my application, and this is how I'm addressing them. So I think especially if you moved on to the full application stage, that there was enough value, or I won't say value, there's enough excitement around it to hear your full idea. But if there may have been something, little or a couple little things that didn't get you over the funding hump, I would just address them directly in the letter of intent and let the reviewers know how you approach that or how you addressed it. Next question is the TRAP award intended to be a singular funding source, or can it be supplemental to additional funding, such as a NEI grant? Very, very good question. I wouldn't necessarily call it supplemental per se, but yes, it can be in support of other funding that does not cover the full scope of your idea or your approach. For example, if you had an NEI grant to do preclinical studies in mice to determine X, Y, and Z, but you're also interested and you've seen some really good preliminary data, but that research is still ongoing, but you're also interested in a newly developed large animal swine model where you can do testing. Yes, you can apply for us to do that swine testing while the other funding is sort of complementary or complementary to each other. So yes, if you have an idea that's not currently covered by another funding agency that you think is important for the development and maybe the progression of it to the clinic, by all means, please apply. However, we will take a close look at these approaches to see that there is no overlap. We will not double fund an idea, especially if it's not leading towards the progression and the development of a particular therapy or cure. What percent of full applications are typically funded? I would say typically it's around 10%. And it depends on which stage you're actually talking about. So and I'll share this with you, at the LOI stage last year, there were 79 letters of intent submitted. I believe we invited 26 to submit full applications. And this past year, we awarded 8 of those applications. So off those metrics, if you're talking about from the LOI stage, we are funding around 10% of people who submit ideas for consideration. Next question is, may I know the 2024 TRAP awardee recipients and their title of their project? I would love to share that information with you. However, we are currently we're still working on getting our award terms signed with those awardees, and we will not announce who those awardees are until that signing has happened. However, you can go to our website and see who the 2023 awardees are, and you can see the project of their titles and their approaches. And many of them will be at ARVO presenting on the research that we are currently funding. But also, please reach out to me directly if you need help sort of finding that 2023 information, and I can guide you there, or I can even have a personal conversation with you there, or put you in contact with those people if you need more insight from their angle. All right. Are there any more questions? We have plenty of time. There's nothing really.
Chad, there are 2 questions in the chat.
In the chat. Oh, okay, here we go. Sorry. Someone asked, what is the significance of the elimination of the various categories of the proposal? Early stage versus late stage. I'll answer that first. Over the years of this funding, trying to segment them of them being early versus late stage, I think put a little bit of an unbiased favoritism to those that were more that say they were more late stage than others. And I think that we really want to focus on the best research ideas. So instead of complicating things, it would say that if you fall within this scope of preclinical development, we want to fund the best ideas and the best approaches that will ultimately lead to therapies in the clinic. So that is the sort of motivation behind taking those categories out and just having the best ideas that fall within that scope funded. Does this mean that the number of applications funded in each category will no longer be controlled? Well, the number of categories, the numbers funded in those categories was never a sort of discerning factor. We never had a quota for each individual category. We still funded the best, but then again, eliminating any sort of bias versus early versus late stage, we again wanted the focus to be on the best projects and the best ideas. Are early stage proposals judged directly against late stage proposals? What are the implications of this change for grant writers? No, I wouldn't say, so I think again, we're trying to eliminate that bias and saying we're really funding the ideas. Just because something is later stage does not mean that it will have favoritism over something that's early stage. Next one is, and or what are the FFB reasons for this change? Again, I think I've already addressed that. Are the application form worldwide are accepted? Yes, I think if the question is asking, will we accept applications from anywhere in the world? The answer to that is yes. Our inherited optic neuropathies also will be reviewed. Please contact me for that. I want to hear a little bit more about that question, so I can give you a little bit better of an answer. But my initial, well, just contact me, please. How many multi-PIs are allowed? There is no multi-PIs. So again, on one of the slides, we showed that only one PI will be funded. Now you can have sub-awardees or subcontracts to other labs or other organizations that help you get the work done, but there will be only one PI will be awarded. If you are looking for something that's a multi-PI opportunity, we do have something called our project program award, which is a multi-site, multi-center research funding opportunity, but that is outside the scope of our translational program. And then the last question here is, what is the percentage of funding from the total values received? And that, again, I'll reiterate that it's around 10%, at least of last year, around 10%. All right, again, we have about 15 more minutes left for this, so more than happy to take any more questions. Again, if hopefully you're still seeing this question slide here that has my email address on here. Again, for those of you who will be at ARVO, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email. I'm gonna try to block off time each morning while we're in Seattle to be able to have one-on-one meetings with people really before the ARVO programming starts. So, pretty early in the morning, maybe like 7 a.m. out in Seattle. But if you're an early riser, no problem. Also, if you want to meet after in the evenings, right after ARVO, is talking more than open to that. I'm trying to protect my time a little bit during the meeting so that I can attend as many sessions as possible. But if necessary, I'm sure that we can make some type of concessions to meet during the meeting as well, maybe for a quick coffee or something. Are there any more questions? I'm not seeing any in the chat. Okay, well, with that, I think we can close the meeting again. Please, if you have any additional questions or follow-up or I wasn't clear about something during this webinar, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to have a phone call or an email exchange with anybody, anyone and everyone about this. We don't want anybody to be confused about this. But I will say thank you all for your time. You have a wonderful day and hopefully see you at Arvo or somewhere else in the near future. Take care.